Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared and this is in Scotland, this video. And as you can see, the ground is moving as though it's a boat or like it's waves on the ocean. And I don't think that the ground is normally supposed to do that. And the reason why is because there's this event going on, primarily it seems, in Scotland, at least right now. I already covered that in Cork. In Ireland, there was flash flooding, but I started seeing all these videos come out after that in Scotland and a couple locations in England where you're starting to get this, including, I guess, weird happenings like what you're seeing right here. So what we're going to do is look at these videos, and then I thought we would just have a nice, simple video. Well, at least that's how it's planned. And we'll look at Doctrines of Salvation, Volume 3. I'm going to read that third chapter in Millennial Messiah, but, you know, those chapters are kind of on the long side. And there's this in Doctrines of Salvation by Joseph Fielding Smith, where he talks about the final war. And so I thought it'd be good to see what he had to say about it. And I think it's good repeating these things so we can get some of these doctrines in our mind. At the same time, remaining flexible, because we never know exactly how prophecy is going to play out. It usually plays out in natural ways. But we'll just see what it says there. So before we get into all that, I've updated the Flood the Earth Challenge spreadsheet. And there is some news. So from the last time that I updated it on the 17th, we have had 5 new reports of people meeting with the missionaries. So now this month, October, is tied with August and April for the most reports of people meeting with missionaries. And we still have about a third of the month to go. So it'd be great if it went even higher than that. And then we have a new report of somebody getting baptized as well. So that makes us so that 3 people have gotten baptized this month, which puts this month in, let's see, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th place. So that is not too bad. We're just one person away from getting to the next milestone for the number of people joining the challenge. I highlight it with this purple color every 50. So if you haven't already, share a Book of Mormon. Do it through the Gospel Library app or use a hard copy. And then just let me know. Put it in the comments or send me an email. Make sure to include this right here, #flood, and just keep it very short and simple with just how many copies of the Book of Mormon you shared, or if there were missionaries or a baptism or whatever. So good job, everybody. Okay, so this thing going on in Scotland, as always, I make sure to verify that this is actually happening when like videos come out on X, because sometimes people post old things or things from other locations. So it is in fact happening. This is BBC News, and it's from today. I'm recording this on Friday, the 20th. Storm Babbitt, second red alert in a week as flooding rages on. Now, let's go to Google Earth so you can see. The most recent thing that I talked about was Cork, Ireland. Okay. It seems like mostly just this area was affected by flash flooding. And it was from the same storm. It was from Storm Babbitt. So it went over Ireland, and now it's hitting the UK. And this like blue box right here that I've made, this is the area that we're talking about, and this is the area from which we're going to see videos. Earlier this month, what day was it? Oh yeah, that's right. On the 7th of October, you had this portion of Scotland that was affected by flash flooding. But then now, 13 days later, you have Storm Babbitt that's affecting this area. And then I have these other months selected too. I'll just turn them off. Let's see if that changes anything really. So right now, all I have selected is this month, October. This is what's taking place this month on the British Isles and in Ireland. Okay, so let's take a look at some of these videos. So there was this one that I started off with. This is really freaky. The woods were moving like the sea this morning. Again, maybe a sign that the earth is broken or things are changing. I don't know. In reality, this is probably some kind of like well-known, phenomenon. Maybe it just takes like a lot of soil saturation or like a really high water table or something. I have no idea. If you're a geologist or if you know what this is, put it in the comments below. All right, so you got that. There's another video. Let's see, this was filmed by David Nugent Malone. Is that who did the last one? Yeah, by the same person. Oh, wow, look, there's a part 2. It makes sense now. Still freaky. Oh, and with that, a rocket alert. So let's go over to Israel really quick. This is like in the very southern part of, it's just south of the very southern part of Gaza, the Gaza Strip. This is interesting because there hasn't been a rocket attack for a few hours. So it's only now as I'm recording this video. Maybe I need to stop making videos. But hopefully everyone there is okay. And today, there's been a bunch of rocket attacks. Not as heavy as some other days that I've seen, but yeah. So this like southern place right here. Okay, back to this. So watch out, dog. Don't go under there. You almost killed yourself. All right, let's go on to the next one. Earth 44. Okay, Earth. Oh, I get it. Earth for tomorrow, not Earth 42 tomorrow. Earth for tomorrow. That's the name of the account. Hashtag Storm Babbitt leaves Dundee streets flooded. Roads closed from Meyerkirk to Morrison's. So here you go. We have cars that are partway submerged. Here's another one. More horrific video coming from Chesterfield. And you can see a car just kind of floating in the background there as this larger vehicle comes through. Priyathosh Agnahamsa. And there go the trash cans, as is usually the case. It's always going to be trash cans or a dumpster that gets swept away along with people and cars, but it's a 100% guarantee you will always have trash cans or dumpsters that float away during these events. Massive floods due to extreme rainfall in the Brecon, Scotland. Video number 10. Okay, wow. This is from Volcaholic. Wow, this certainly woke the kids up on their way home from school in Chesterfield today. And yeah. Yep. So I'm guessing that this is like a double-decker bus. That's what I'm going to guess this is. It looks to me like this might be like a double-decker bus, judging by that like railing right here. It looks like public transportation railing. But okay, so that happened. From Shadab Javed. Farmers pulled a lot of cars out of floods today and helped children get home from school. Please share this brave story of farmers. Yeah, that's great. I never really thought about that, in some cases, I guess, depending on how high the water is and what's going on, that they have vehicles that can actually handle this and carry out rescue operations. Okay, now here we go. This is a bus. Volcaholic, I'm not sure if this is the same bus, but just found this via Radio Goldsmith. And this is interesting because we've seen a lot of videos of like buses still operating when there's this crazy flooding happening. But this is what it looks like on the inside as it's happening. So in case you were wondering about that, this is what it looks like on the inside. All right. Volcaholic, the flooding in Chesterfield is looking really bad now. And yep, sure does. Can't even tell what's supposed to be there, but judging by that car, it's probably a road that's been turned into a river. Okay, next one, Volcaholic. Well, actually, this is through M. Let me click on this. M says, more Chesterfield flooding, cars stuck on Boythrup Road. and the ducks are swimming on the cricket pitch. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what else are ducks going to do? What else are ducks going to do? And then here, this is the other one. You always have to have the kayaker. You have to have the opportunist. You know, fortune has smiled upon him, and the water has come to him today. And so he is going to go ahead with his spare time and kayak down a city road. And then the last one that I got, this is from Valcoholic. Counselor Jill Scott, who lives in Brecken, describes the floods as, quote unquote, horrific, with people trapped in hundreds of homes flooded. Now, I skimmed through a few different articles. There have been like a handful of deaths, like 3 or something like that, which is obviously 3 too many, but it's not as bad as, you know, other things. Like, for example, the recent earthquake in Afghanistan that's killed more than 2,000 people. But obviously a lot of property damage, people's lives being interrupted, possibly ruined. And then for a few, their lives are ended through this event. So going back to the UK, the better part of the island, Great Britain, seems to have been affected. And this is an imperfect, you know, capture of what's going on. There's probably other places that have gone unreported, didn't make the news, or people didn't submit, you know, X videos or whatever. So this is just a rough area, and it's probably beyond that, you know, and there's probably more that was going on in Ireland as well. So let me turn this whole year back on. There has been quite a bit of flooding in Europe, in the UK, Ireland, Spain, southern France, and then you have Belgrade, Zagreb, which I think is, let me turn on the borders. I've never been really good with my Eastern European countries. So Serbia, Slovenia, Croatia, Bulgaria, Athens, and then over here in Turkey as well. So Europe has been hit pretty hard, and I still haven't gone back. I know that there was like flooding in Frankfurt, where there's some crazy scenes that were coming out of Frankfurt earlier this year, but I guess I just didn't get to it. So yeah, this really, what I have here on the map for this year, this really underrepresents what's actually been going on throughout the world. I can't capture everything. I'm not a genie, but I can do what I can. And it's been a pretty crazy year. Now, to be fair, I don't know what's normal, really. I've only started doing this year, but I feel like what I can say, there's a couple things I think I can say with a certain degree of confidence that's not normal. All the flash flooding in Europe, I've never seen that before in my life. Like I've said, I've always been kind of a news junkie ever since the age of like 11 or 12, just because when I woke up to go to school, my dad would have the news on and I was interested in the news. And it's never struck me that Europe has been a place for these kind of images. And, you know, maybe occasionally, you know, it happens, but this has been really frequent in a lot of different places. It's been, I don't know. I'm pretty sure that this is not normal. And then on top of that, you know, we've had the largest fire in both Greece, and then since Greece is part of the European Union, and you take all of the European Union, out of all fires within those borders, this has also been the largest wildfire in Greece and European Union history. So I know that that's not normal because that's record-breaking. And then what also is not normal is the Canadian wildfire smoke that we saw earlier this year. And then there's been record-breaking wildfires over here. So, yeah, all I can really do is keep trying to capture everything that I possibly can. And I'm sticking with like the bigger things, the things that are like better documented, and that seem unusual, because I can't go after every single little thing that takes place. So anyway, Uh, Needless to say, it's been a wild year. So that's it for that. I'll put the link for this story in the description below in case you want to check it out. And it seems like it's going to be an ongoing event. According to this, there's going to be more rain Saturday. So for you guys, it's going to be today. So this doesn't even seem to be over yet. And that's pretty much it for that. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and let's go over to Doctrines of Salvation. So again, this is in volume 3. And if you're not familiar with Doctrines of Salvation, like he has it broken up into these different sections. There's chapters, but within chapters, there's like sections, and there's also like these paragraphs. So this is the section called Wars Attending Second Coming. Okay. Battles of Armageddon in Gog and Magog. Before the coming of Christ, the great war, sometimes called Armageddon, will take place as spoken of by Ezekiel chapters 38 and 39. Another war of Gog and Magog will be after the millennium. Now, this is something that always comes up somewhat frequently. There's a lot of confusion about this. And what it looks like, from what I can tell, now you have to keep in mind that this was written a long time ago. This was published in 1954. So if you go to the Bible dictionary and you go to other church materials, this is what it says about Gog and Magog. Okay. You have to go under the listing for Gog. So number 1, a Reubenite. Number 2, king of Magog, whose invasion of Israel was prophesied by Ezekiel. The prophecy points to a time when the Gentile nations of the north would set themselves against the people of God and would be defeated and led to recognize Jehovah as king. All this appears to be at the second coming of the Lord. Another battle, called the Battle of Gog and Magog, will occur at the end of the 1,000 years. This is described by John in Revelation. See also D&C 88. Okay, so I know it's confusing, but the final war before the second coming is Gog and Magog. And then there's another Gog and Magog at the end. Okay. And Armageddon, based on what I've studied, I'm not going to pull it up right now, but basically Armageddon is a battle that's part of the war. And it takes place, let's go back to the map here. Let me turn on borders and labels. So that takes place up here in the north, kind of by Nazareth, like around this area right here. But then there's the entire war, and who knows what the extent of the war is going to be, where it's going to reach. But I think it's probably safe to say probably all of Israel. And then there's another portion of the war that takes place here, the siege of Jerusalem, which I think you can think of as kind of like a separate battle. One thing that I think that is interesting when it's talking about, the land of the north, church publications have said that it's basically futile to try and identify specific countries. People have tried to do that, just like people try to do with all these like different little details. But basically that there's not a point in doing that. It will happen. And if it is very literal, it's interesting because like I've said, I don't know, like if this war that we're seeing right now, if it escalates, I don't know if Jordan will ever get involved, or if they'll allow entry or passage of troops going through their territory on their way to Israel. But I've talked about the likelihood. I mean, I'm not an expert, but I was thinking about the likelihood that most likely troops would come through here, like through the north, So, for example, over here you have Iran, and then you have Iraq, and then you have Syria, right? And so it makes sense in bypassing Jordan that they would come up this way primarily. But I don't know. I'm not a war planner. I have no idea. It just kind of makes sense. And then we also know, you have Russia and China over here that are on the side of Hamas, essentially, and Russia is directly north. So, I don't know. That's just something interesting to point out, but let's get back to this. Time of final war not revealed. During the past 2 years, the question has constantly arisen and been discussed in priesthood classes, Sunday schools, and in private conversations. Is this great war, meaning World War II, which has cast its evil shadow over a large portion of the world and which threatens to engulf all the rest of mankind, the greatest last war, to precede the second coming of our Lord as predicted by the prophets? We may answer this question by saying, we truly hope that it is. Now, see, that's the attitude right there. It's not that you hope that there's a horrible war going on, but it's evidence of something better to come. And I know that that's what all of us here, all of you watching this channel, what we're all hoping for. But let's continue. But the Lord has definitely informed his disciples that not even the angels in heaven knew the day nor the hour when he should make his appearance, but his Father only. Therefore, unless the Lord sees fit to reveal to us the information, we do not know when or where this great conflict will end. Now, this is interesting because you think, yeah, we do. It's going to be in Israel. And that is, in fact, where it'll end. So that's an interesting thing. I also want to point out the fact, I'm not going to pull it up right now, but we've read it a million times. Joseph Smith said that the prophet is going to know when the second coming is going to happen, because the Lord doesn't do anything until he reveals it first to the prophet. And Bruce R. McConkie covered in New Testament, what's it called? Doctrinal New Testament Commentary, that Christ also knows when he's going to come, as evidenced by, there's a Joseph Smith translation. I can't remember. I think it's in Mark. But anyway, okay, well, let's continue. Let us hope and pray that it may be the last struggle before permanent peace and righteousness shall be sent down from heaven, and Christ come to take his rightful place as King of Kings upon the earth. Well, turned out that it wasn't, unfortunately. If it had been, that would have meant that I would have been a millennial child. I don't know about you. Probably most of you. Final war to make a full end of all nations. In regard to the wars, World War II now raging on the earth. Now again, I don't know when this was written, but according to this down here, it says the publication date was 1954. So I don't know if that was just like the most updated version or edition. But apparently he was writing this during World War II. In regard to the wars, World War II, now raging on the earth, I'm sure the prophets have spoken of them. The Lord told Joseph Smith that the war between the states, commencing with the rebellion of South Carolina, was the beginning of the end. At that time, peace was taken from the earth, and the prediction was made that beginning at that place, excuse me, eventually war would be poured out upon all nations, bringing misery, death, mourning, famine, plague, earthquake, vivid lightnings, and so forth, causing the inhabitants of the earth to be made to feel the wrath and indignation and chastening hand of an almighty God, until the consumption decreed hath made a full end of all nations. It appears that now this is in course of fulfillment. Yeah. Let's do this really quick. We've done this a couple times before, but if we go to my second coming timeline, I better zoom out. Let's go down. Let's go down to the Civil War. Of course, that's in reference to the American Civil War. If I can find it, 1860. I'm never really good with, I think it's like, is it 62? No, 61. So 1861, right here. Brigham Young is the president of the church at the time. There is another war in the world, another like major war that's going on, the Cape Frontier Wars. That was in South Africa. But all these columns here that I haven't read, these represent wars and conflicts. Sometimes it includes riots, but there's only a few of those. So American Civil War, Paraguay War, 7 Weeks War, Selangor War, Franco-Prussian War, Acehnese War, Red River Indian War. I'm not going to list them all, but just pay attention to the red as I go up. We're still in the 1800s at this point. Spanish-American War. And then here's a bunch of wars that kick off at the turn of that century. Pretty much starting in like 1899. And then the next few years, just a bunch of wars kick off. Anglo-Boer War, Boxer Rebellion. You already have the Acehnese War going. Philippine-American War that started in 1899. The War of 1,000 Days. And Moro Wars. And then let's keep going. Mexican Revolution. And then here's World War I. Russian Revolution. World War II, which happened just after the Spanish Civil War. And then anyway, you get the idea. Just a bunch of major conflicts have taken place. Here we have the Israeli War of Independence in 1948, just almost right after World War II, essentially. Korean War, Vietnam War, a bunch of wars in Israel. The Soviet-Afghan War. So, yeah, it's been going on. And come on, let's get to the twin wars, the Afghanistan and Iraq War. You had the Arab Spring, like what I said. I think that's essentially a type of warfare. I think it's the weaponization of rallies and protests. The model being called Color Revolution, and it affected a good part of the Arab world, starting in December of 2010. And we still see color revolutions and other forms of asymmetric warfare taking place right now that I think a lot of people don't take into account or don't recognize as war. And anyway, that basically brings us, here's the Ukraine war. Now, this is a major one because it just, to my mind, it seemed so unlikely that it would happen in the days leading up to it. I didn't think that it was real life. I thought, no, there's no way. There's no way that Russia would invade Ukraine. Because I guess I was still kind of in that 90s mindset. You know, the Soviet Union is gone. Russia's never going to be in like another war again. Unless it's like the very final war, you know, maybe when things go really crazy. And it could be in a sense that the final war began, or at least, not began, like entered into a new phase with the Ukraine war. There's been a lot of stuff going on right now. A lot of like heated exchanges between Israel and Russia, because Russia is, you know, on the Hamas side, essentially. You know, there's an axis. Everybody knows this. It's Russia and China, Iran, and, you know, by extension, Hamas and Hezbollah and the terrorist groups. And I'm not going to go into detail all the things that have been going on, but you can look it up, and it's almost like starting to seem in a way like it's something similar to World War II, where there were kind of like two different wars really going on. You had the German Nazis and the Italians in Europe, but then you had the Japanese in Japan, and they were primarily fighting American forces, and I think in some cases Australians. But it's almost like the same thing. You have like Russia and Ukraine up north, and then they're allied with what's about to happen in the south. And again, we're at a very pivotal moment right now. The ground invasion of Gaza has not yet taken place, but it's becoming just even more apparent as with each hour that goes by that this is going to turn into something much larger, and it's almost inevitable that it's going to turn into some kind of regional war. I've seen a bunch of different videos of Iran moving ballistic missiles and moving military equipment, stuff like that, from credible sources. And I think that they really do intend to get involved in this war. And the thing that's going to set it off, that's going to move it to the next phase, is the ground invasion of Gaza. It's like we're in a very tense moment right now. So if a regional war breaks out in the Middle East, and then on top of that, you have Russia and Ukraine in the north, it's probably just going to exacerbate the different alliances, the East West, the nationalist, globalist, divide. And it's very possible that China will maybe step in. There's been talk of that. There's also fear of China going ahead and going after Taiwan, because that would be a good time for China to do that. With the West, already preoccupied with Russia. And then on top of that, if the Middle East breaks out into a regional war, that's like a perfect time for China to go for Taiwan. At that point, like, the opportunities keep presenting themselves to people that want to do things that haven't been able to do them, because of fear of what the West would do. But the West, I think, is getting spread thin. So I just feel like a lot of things could happen. But anyway, let's bring us to current. So here we are right now. Kind of like the three big ones that I'm tracking is the Syrian civil war, which is still going on since the time of the Arab Spring, the Ukraine war, and then what's currently being called the Israeli Hamas war. It still doesn't have like a final name. That's how early we are in this conflict. But that name very well and probably will change to something else. Maybe it'll end up being called like the October 7th War, or the Simchat Torah War, because we had the Yom Kippur War, which was that first surprise attack 50 years ago. And this one was also a surprise attack, and it happened on Simchat Torah, part of the Feast of Tabernacles, the last day or the 8th day following the 7 days. So, anyway. Okay, siege of Jerusalem to end final war. Well, look, that's it right there. That's the answer. He just said that we don't know when it's going to end or where it's going to end. But then siege of Jerusalem to end final war. Ezekiel has given us in the 38th and 39th chapters much in detail in relation to the great battle, which shall precede the coming of the Son of Man to reign. Joel and Daniel also prophesied of these great events, which may even now be on the way to complete consumption. One thing we are given by these prophets definitely to understand is that the great last conflict before Christ shall come will end at the siege of Jerusalem. So said Ezekiel and Daniel, and the Lord declared to Joel, "For behold, in those days and in that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem," i.e. from captivity, "I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat and will plead with them there for my people and for Ray heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land. At this time, prophesied Joel, will the Lord judge the heathen. Put ye in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come, get you down, for the press is full. The fats overflow, for their wickedness is great. Multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of the Lord is near in the valley of decision." And I'm not saying that this is like fulfillment, what I'm about to say, but I feel like what's going on right now is you do have, if we're talking about nations, it really does seem like nations are showing their hands and what side they're on. Meaning that as every day goes by, every nation is kind of choosing what side it's on. And I know it's like a complicated situation, but what happened on October 7th was really bad. And many do acknowledge that it was horrific what Hamas did. But despite the fact what they did, they're like turning their backs on the victims of that day, and they're siding with the terrorists. Now, I know that they have their justifications, that in the grand scheme of things, they view Israel as an oppressor, and that's like the greater crime, but it's pretty clear. It's pretty clear that Hamas is bad, it's evil, and you shouldn't side with them. You should side with innocent people, and there's innocent people on both sides. But anyway, and you see like these like different protests and stuff going on throughout the world, and it's not all just Muslims, and not all Muslims participate in the protests and rallies. But what you do see is you see a lot of these secular people. Now, again, some of them are probably just confused, some of them deceived by Satan. So even among the seculars or the people that are on the side of evil consistently, I don't think all of them are necessarily bad, but a lot of them I think are. And they're in their own way in the valley of Jehoshaphat, the valley of decision, choosing their side and siding with evil ultimately, from what it seems like to me. So I'm just saying right now, a lot of people are really declaring their side. And maybe it doesn't have to do so much with, if you're for Israel or against Israel, but your state of mind and whether you have compassion inside yourself, humanity, or if you're just simply you play according to your team, you don't care about people, you care about your side, you care about your politics and your philosophies, and so it's just like strictly you versus them. I think a lot of people are getting solidified in that. Okay. So we are given to understand that when the armies gather in Palestine, will be the time when the Lord shall come in judgment and make the eventful decision, which will confound the enemies of his people and establish them in their ancient land forever. This very well could be happening right now. The Lord judging people as they're making their decisions in regards to this conflict. Christ to come in midst of battle. Zechariah is another prophet who has plainly spoken of these great events. According to his predictions, the nations will gather and lay siege to Jerusalem. Part of the city will fall, with dire consequences to its inhabitants, when a great earthquake will come. The Mount of Olives will cleave in twain, and the persecuted people will flee into this valley for safety. At that particular time will the Savior come as their deliverer and show them his hands and feet. They will look upon him and ask him where he received his wounds. And he will tell them they were received in the house of his friends. He is Jesus Christ, their Redeemer. Then will they fall to the ground and mourn, every family apart, because their ancestors persecuted their king, and the children have followed in the footsteps of their fathers. I don't think that's supposed to be feathers. Following in the footsteps of their feathers. All right. And again, I think it's worth repeating. Turkey, earthquake, olive grove. Earlier this year, the year in which this war has started, a war unlike any other war so far in Israel's history, with so much on the line, and so far I think probably the best candidate for being the final war. In February of this year, there was a Mount of Olives that was cleaved in twain in Turkey. And it's interesting because Turkey, it seems to me like they're becoming more and more involved, and there's talk about them potentially taking action, which would certainly complicate things because Turkey is part of NATO and the United States is part of NATO. And it's a military alliance. So anyway, I don't know. But imagine a scenario where Turkey joins in and maybe they become a major player. And then it just so happens that you have this sign of a Mount of Olives cleaving in twain in that very country. Again, I cannot overstate how important I think that this sign is. When is the last time that you've seen a Mount of Olives cleave in twain because of an earthquake? See, these are all the olive trees right here on this side and on that side. It used to be all together. Here's some olive trees over here. One of the strongest signs of the times, I think, because it gives you a really vivid visual of what's going to happen in Jerusalem with the Mount of Olives. Okay, let's see. Next. At that time shall come the redemption of the Jews. Jerusalem shall then be rebuilt, and the promises that it shall become a holy city will be fulfilled. The punishment which shall come upon those who lay siege to this land will be their destruction. The prophets have portrayed this in much detail with all its horrors. These events are confirmed in the revelations to the prophet Joseph Smith, is found in the Doctrine and Covenants, particularly sections 29, 45, and 133. Elders to warn of final wars. Much more could be written in detail regarding these conflicts, but what is written will suffice. It is, of course, a gloomy picture, but is it not the duty of the elders of Israel to speak of these things with a warning voice? Shall we close our eyes and our ears and seal our understandings simply because some things are unpleasant to hear or to the eye? Well, yeah, some people do that. Some people don't want to think about whether it be the details of the final war, or they just don't want the second coming to happen. It's like they're trying in whatever way in their mind to convince themselves that it's far off in the future, which is a very foolish thing to do. Continuing, shall we refuse to raise a warning voice when danger approaches, when trouble is near, when destruction is at our door? Such a course would be cowardly if we know the truth. We cannot cry all is well when danger lurks on every side. We must not lull the people to sleep in a false security. And let me say something about this, you guys. Isn't it interesting that Joseph Fielding Smith, in that day and age, at the time of World War II, he was not saying, well, the second coming can't happen right now because we're clearly in the fifth seal, or we're clearly in the sixth seal. The seventh seal hasn't been opened yet, or we haven't seen this come to pass or that come to pass. He thought that World War II could have possibly been the final war. You never, ever hear prophets or apostles nowadays say anything like that. I don't know where other people feel like they have the authority to do so based on their own understanding. But I'm showing you time and time again in recent history, there are not prophets, apostles, or general authorities that say, well, but we know that the second coming can't be right now because da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And yet there's people that feel like that they can fill in that gap and then tell you that the second coming is not going to happen soon. I think there's a big problem with that. When you're saying something that our prophets and apostles don't say, then you may not be right. I'm just going to point that out. Joseph Fielding Smith, World War II, he did not say that X, Y, and Z has to happen first. That's probably something that we should all take into account. So if that was the case back in World War II, it's probably even more the case right now. Excuse me. Okay, continuing, he says, we cannot cry all is well when danger lurks on every side. We must not lull the people to sleep in a false security. President Woodruff declared that no man that is inspired by the Spirit and power of God can close his ears, his eyes, or his lips to these things. Peace taken from the earth. No peace again until Christ comes. Peace has been taken from the earth, and it will not return until Christ comes to bring it. When that day arrives, he has promised to send forth his angels, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend, and them which do iniquity. But when that day comes, he further says, then shall the righteous shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. 1 year after the organization of the church, peace could not have been taken from the earth in justice, but the Lord said the time would speedily come. That time has come. Peace has departed from the world. The devil has power over his own dominion. This is made manifest in the actions of men, in the distress among the nations, in the troubles that we see in all lands, including this land, which was dedicated to liberty. There is no peace. Men's hearts are failing them. Greed has the uppermost place in the hearts of men. Evil is made manifest on every side, and people are combining for their own selfish interests. Because of this, I was glad to hear the warning voice raised by our beloved president and by his counselors yesterday. By the way, at the time that he wrote this, he was president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, and by others of the brethren who have spoken, for I think this should be a time of warning, not only to the Latter-day Saints, but to all the world. We owe it to the world to raise a voice of warning, and especially to the members of the church. No world peace because of wickedness. We do not need to be worrying about the times and seasons when Christ shall come, but we do need to watch and pray and be ready. Paul, by prophecy, declares that in the day when these calamities shall come, the people would be saying peace and safety. In other words, would be seeking for safety and seeking for peace, and during these very times would come destruction upon them. What is the matter with the nations today? They are frightened, aren't they? Each nation is contending and contesting with other nations, trying to enter into agreements in regard to armaments, trying to curtail other nations and trying to build up themselves. And at the same time, asking for peace conferences and conventions and world courts and leagues of nations, now the United Nations, sorry, and everything else in order that they might establish peace in the earth, which they cannot do because they will not get down in the fundamental principles upon which peace is based. And as I was just reading that, I was thinking about other things. You know, there's all sorts of these agreements between nations. There's nuclear peace treaties, and there's embargoes, and there's all this different type of stuff. So many different things, especially brokered through the United Nations. Gosh dang it! Sorry. As long as they have in their hearts selfishness and greed and the desire for power and for wealth and for all other things that belong to this world, and forget the things of the kingdom of God, there will be no peace and there will be no contentment. There will be quarreling and contention, strife and war, and in the midst of all their labor, trouble will come, which they could avoid, and that very easily by repentance, getting contrite spirits and broken hearts and loving their neighbors. But this they will not do. Isn't it the height of absurdity to think that nations calling themselves Christians, worshiping presumably the same God, will stand ready to spring at each other's throats? In a revelation given to the church, the Lord said, "If ye are not one, ye are not mine." And in speaking to his disciples when he was upon the earth, he said, Why call ye me Lord, Lord, and do not the things which I say? Fear is basis for modern search for peace. The nations of the earth, the nations of the earth today are crying for peace. But why? It is because in their hearts is found. Is it because in their hearts is found the love of God? No, but because of fear of their fellows. Unrighteousness, the desire to possess, the spirit of greed, and to take advantage of others, has brought to pass a condition of unrest. These, together with the wickedness which is in the hearts of the people, have brought a condition of trouble and woe among the nations, so that they fear and tremble, not because one nation believes or thinks that the Lord is blessing other peoples more than he is blessing it, but because the nations know what is in their own hearts, and they fear that the same thing is in the hearts of their neighbors. And in that they are justified, for that spirit of envy and strife is everywhere in the world. Excuse me. Peace lost because gospel rejected. Today we find this world torn asunder, wickedness prevailing in the hearts of the people, distress among the nations, bloodshed such as the world has never seen before. I'm going to be bold enough to say that all of this could have been avoided. It would have been unnecessary if the inhabitants of the world had hearkened to the voice of the elders of Israel, who are sent to them with the message of salvation, which they have refused to receive. Futility of insincere prayers for peace. Furthermore, we cry for peace. We are called upon to pray for peace, and we are praying for peace. I've never had very much confidence in the proclamation or the request that was made asking the people of this country to pray for peace, for the very good reason that it was not sincere. We cannot pray to the Lord and say, "Listen to our cause, bring victory to us, do what we want you to do, but don't ask us to do what you want us to do." We've heard from quite a number of those who have spoken in this conference of the wickedness that prevails throughout the world. The wickedness among the boys who have gone into the armed forces of the country, the wickedness of the people who are not in those forces. We all know those things are true, that immorality is rampant, that drunkenness and the filthy use of tobacco are weakening the constitutions of those who go out to fight. And these evils are also among those in the armed forces. The world is full of evil. Well, yeah, I'll tell you what, being in the army myself, there's definitely a lot of wickedness to be found in the military. And I'm sure that that's a common phenomenon throughout the world. What of the future? Trouble in the earth will continue. There will be distress, calamity, and perplexity among the nations. We need not look for peace in the immediate future because peace will not come. Nevertheless, we may look forward with rejoicing. So having positivity and not painting a gloomy picture for yourself and for others. Nevertheless, we may look forward with rejoicing. We need not be downcast, but in the spirit of faith and hope and in the fear of the Lord, we should look to the future with feelings of joy, of humility, and of worship, with the desire in our hearts, stronger if possible than ever, of serving the Lord and keeping his commandments, for the day of his coming draws near. I think, well, let's just finish off this chapter, because there's not much left. Watch and be ready. The Lord will come as a thief in night. Watch therefore, for ye know not what hour your Lord doth come. But know this, that if the good man of the house had known in what watch the thief would come, he would have watched, it would not have suffered his house to be broken up. Therefore be ye also ready, for in such an hour as ye think not, the Son of Man cometh. So I say to you, my brethren and sisters, and to all who hear my and all who may hear my voice, we are living in the dispensation of the fullness of times. In the year 1836, one of the ancient prophets stood before Joseph Smith and Oliver Cowdery and conferred upon them certain keys that had been promised to be revealed before the second coming of Christ. After he had given authority unto these two young men, he said unto them, By this ye may know that the great and dreadful day of the Lord is near, even at the doors. That was in 1836, 120 years ago. Well, and again, it's been even longer than that for us now in 2023. 120 years have passed. We are that much nearer the opening of that door and the coming of Christ. I know that there are many, and even some among the Latter-day Saints, who are saying, just as the Lord said they would say, the Lord delayeth his coming. One man said, it is impossible for Jesus to come inside 300 or 400 years. But I say unto you, watch. And you know what? I think I would prefer to listen to the president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles rather than some person on YouTube or Facebook or an uncle that spends more time fishing and hunting and watching sports. I would pay much more attention to a prophet of the Lord in the way that he views the second coming. And I'll remind you, he's not saying, well, it can't happen now because this and this and this have to happen, and that's going to take a long time. You're not going to find anybody that says that except for in the early church. I don't know why not very many people watched my last video, but I showed the new my new spreadsheet. Let me find it really quick. This is quotes prophecy fulfillment 2, where it's basically a phrase tracker, but I'm going to look at the context of each time that these phrases are used, because I'm trying to find out when was the last time that a prophet or apostle or other general authority said that, well, this prophecy still needs to be fulfilled. And so far, you have to go back quite a ways. You have to go back to 1884. I have these color-coded, but just go watch that video. I'm not going to repeat all that here. That's why I had a video for it. It's the last video that I did. I would encourage you to watch it. Already, it's really revealing. In the early church, there was still much to be fulfilled. Nowadays, you don't see that very much. You don't see it very much at all. You have a green right here where they actually say, you have to read the talk, but what they say is like, well, this has been fulfilled and this has been fulfilled. And anyway, just go watch that video. Okay, so continuing with this, he says, I do not know when he is going to come. No man knows. Even the angels of heaven are in the dark in regard to that great truth. But this I know, that the signs have been pointed out. The signs that have been pointed out are here. The earth is full of calamity, of trouble. The hearts of men are failing them. We see the signs as we see the fig tree putteth forth her leaves. And knowing this time is near, it behooves me and it behooves you and all men upon the face of the earth to pay heed to the words of Christ, to his apostles, and watch. For we know not the day nor the hour. But I tell you this, it shall come as a thief in the night, when many of us will not be ready for it. I just want to say it again. With this war that's going on right now, which seems to be the best candidate for the final war, I think you'll find many people, and maybe you've already experienced this, that will say, no, this can't be the final war. This might be like the beginning, or it might cause a future war or escalation, but this isn't it. When this may actually be it. And still you have the world going on, everyone living their lives, while you have these horrible, horrible things that have taken place in Israel. And as we're getting ready for like the main war to start, people that are just none the wiser, just doing their thing, going to the bar, eating, drinking, getting married, or maybe not getting married, maybe getting with a bunch of different people as the worldly do. And it's going to come as a thief in the night for them because they're not watching. They don't pay attention to these things. And there's also a lot of members of the church that also don't watch and they don't believe. All right, continuing. They were promised that they should go forth with power and authority, and the voice of warning shall be unto all people by the mouths of my disciples, whom I have chosen in these last days. And they shall go forth, and none shall stay them, for I, the Lord, have commanded them. Wherefore, fear and tremble, O ye people, for what I, the Lord, have decreed in them shall be fulfilled. With this commission, the servants of the Lord have gone forth with the message of salvation, and where they could not go, they have sent the word. And where they could not go, they have sent the word, so that it has been proclaimed virtually in all parts of the earth. Well, see, this is a big one. There's people that are so sure that the gospel has not been proclaimed, not even close to being proclaimed throughout all the world, because we do not have missionaries with white shirts and ties in Iraq and in Iran. So it's not possible. It's not possible for that scripture to be, or that prophecy to be fulfilled. Well, I don't know. During World War II, and according to Joseph Fielding Smith, yes, it virtually has come to all parts of the earth, all the way back then, before the internet. Need to teach children in these perilous times. There never was a time in the history of the church when we've been surrounded by so many evils, temptations, and conditions that allure and entice the children of Zion from paths of righteousness as we find today. Well, okay, 1945 or whatever year this was before TV shows like the Andy Griffith Show, Father Knows Best, things like that. We've come a long way as far as evil goes and enticing the children of Zion from paths of righteousness. It behooves each one of us to be on alert and constantly keep in mind the fact that we belong to the church, that the Lord has given unto us the fullness of the gospel with all its promises, and that it depends upon our faith. Okay, this is a typo. Our faithfulness and our obedience and integrity to these principles of truth and to the church, whether or not we reap the blessings. The Lord in an early day had to rebuke some of the leading elders of the church because conditions were not as they ought to be in their homes. I wonder if most of us would not receive a like rebuke if the Lord should speak again in like manner. In the 93rd section of the Doctrine and Covenants, the Lord says, "But I have commanded you to bring up your children in light and truth." All through these revelations, we find this instruction that the parents are to bring up their children to teach them in light and truth. In another section, 68, the Lord says that if parents do not teach their children so that they will understand the principle of baptism and teach them to pray and to have faith in the principles of the gospel, when they reach the age of accountability, 8 years, that he will hold those parents responsible. And if their children, through lack of training, should grow up in ignorance of the truth and deny the faith, that he will require an accounting at the hands of their parents. So you see, we all have a very grave responsibility. There were a lot of good things said in what we just read, and I think there's a few more quotes I need to pull out of here and put on my spreadsheets, particularly this one, that the gospel has virtually been proclaimed in all parts of the earth, contrary to private opinions and speculation and things like that. And this was back during World War II. And then other things too. So I'm glad that we read this. The last thing that we're going to read, that I have planned to read, is going to be that third chapter in Millennial Messiah that has to do with the final war. He has 3 different chapters that have to do with that subject, with Armageddon, Jerusalem, the final war. And I want to read as much as I can right now about it, because we might be in it, or at least at the beginning parts of it. Things are developing really fast. You know, I would encourage you to go on Twitter. Just be careful because there's a lot of things that you probably don't want to see there. But if you think that you can, I would get on there because that's where a lot of the breaking news first appears. Any moment now, the ground invasion could start. And once it does, like I said, I think it's going to spark the rest of what's going to come. In fact, today I was reading in some articles. You know what? Let me look it up. Let's see. Lebanon primary war front, something like that. Let's see, news. I'm not going to be able to find it now. Let me do Hezbollah. Dang it. Well, I saw things coming out, and these were news articles, but I can't find them here, that were essentially saying that Israel, the IDF is potentially looking at Hezbollah in Lebanon as the coming primary war front rather than Gaza. You know, initially all focus was on Gaza because they're going to do a ground invasion. They're going to kill everybody that's associated with Hamas. But the ground invasion has been delayed because they've, for a few different reasons. But one of the reasons is because they're trying to assess exactly what Hezbollah is going to do. If Hezbollah is going to go full force, and it seems like they are. And so I've seen things today saying that the main focus is probably going to be up here. And then it's yet to be seen what Iran is going to do once things kick off, and possibly other nations, possibly even Turkey. And as we talk about nations from the north, Gog and Magog coming down into Israel, Turkey is one of those nations that is directly north of Israel. We are in for some very interesting days ahead. And I don't see, and it doesn't seem like others, like experts or politicians, military leaders, it doesn't seem like anybody sees a very easy way out of this. It's not likely that things are going to calm down from this point. There's stuff going on in the West Bank. There have been a lot of raids by police where they've done like these mass arrests, and there's been clashes, and as far as I can tell, there's still stuff going on in Jerusalem itself. So things are just like things are like really getting ready to kick off pretty soon. All right, well, that's going to be it for this one. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.